The sun hung heavy over the neighborhood pool, turning the concrete deck into a shimmering mirror of heat. Chlorine filled the air, the smell sharp but strangely comforting to Malik. It was one of those summer afternoons where time seemed to slow down. Kids cannonballed into the deep end, teenagers sprawled across towels, and parents chatted under umbrellas. Malik had just finished his morning swim practice with the local team and stayed behind to relax, proud of how much faster he'd gotten this season. He loved the water. How it made everything quiet, how it didn't care who you were once you dove in. He adjusted his goggles, pushed off from the edge, and glided through the water, counting his strokes. His coach always said he had a natural rhythm, that rare combination of calm and power. When he came up for air, blinking against the sunlight, he noticed a woman standing by the pool gate. Her posture was stiff, her chin tilted just enough to suggest disapproval. She wore a wide-brimmed sun hat, a crisp white cover-up, and sunglasses so large they hid most of her face. Malik didn't think much of it at first. People watched all the time, especially when a lone swimmer stayed after practice. He kicked off the wall and started another lap. But when he surfaced again, the woman had moved closer, her sandals clacking against the wet concrete as she approached the edge. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice sharp and clipped. Malik pulled off his goggles, water dripping down his face. "Yes, ma'am," she frowned, as if the polite response annoyed her. "Are you supposed to be here?" He blinked. Yeah, I'm a member. My family." She cut him off, holding up one manicured hand. "Don't. I've lived here for 10 years. I know who belongs and who doesn't. You people always find your way in somehow." For a second, Malik thought he'd misheard her. "You people." The words echoed in his head like the slap of a wet towel. He climbed halfway out of the pool, sitting on the edge, trying to stay calm. His mother always told him that some people didn't need a reason to look down on you, they'd invent one if they had to. "I'm not sneaking in," he said quietly. "My mom pays for our membership every year. The Carters. You can check the list at the front desk." The woman crossed her arms. "I don't need to check anything. I've seen all the members. You're not one of them." She gestured toward the gate where the sign-in sheet hung on a clipboard. "Go ahead, try to prove it. I'll be right here when you can't." A few heads turned from nearby lounge chairs. Two little kids in the shallow end stopped splashing, sensing something tense in the air. Malik could feel their eyes on him, a dozen silent questions written across their faces. His heart thudded in his chest. "Look, ma'am, I don't want any trouble. I'm just swimming." The woman's lips tightened. "Then you can swim somewhere else. This is a private facility, not a public pool." He wanted to laugh, part disbelief, part frustration. Instead, he stood, dripping and shivering slightly despite the heat. "It is private. I live here." That seemed to push her over the edge. She took a step closer, her voice rising. "Don't lie to me, young man. I've seen this before. Kids from outside the neighborhood sneaking in, pretending they belong. You think because no one's watching, you can get away with it. Not today." Her tone was loud enough now that the lifeguard, a college student named Ben, glanced up from his chair. He looked uncertain, caught between wanting to stay out of it and realizing something wasn't right. "Ma'am," he called hesitantly, "everything okay?" She turned toward him, exasperated. "No, everything is not okay. This boy doesn't belong here, and he refuses to leave. You need to do your job." Ben frowned, looking at Malik. "He's on the swim team, Mrs. Dunlap. I see him here all the time." Her expression faltered, just for a moment. Then she forced a brittle smile. "Well, maybe you've been mistaken. I'll just call the WA to confirm." She pulled her phone from her bag and began tapping furiously, muttering about security concerns. Malik's stomach twisted. He wanted to disappear, to melt into the water and never come up again. Around him, the chatter had died down. Every splash, every whisper felt like it carried his name. He sat back down at the pool's edge, head bowed, fighting the heat building in his chest. He didn't want to make a scene. He didn't want to be the angry kid, the stereotype. He just wanted to swim. But deep down, something else stirred, a spark of defiance, small but steady. He thought of his mother's words from that morning. Don't ever let them make you smaller just to make themselves feel big. So he stayed where he was. Quiet, steady, refusing to shrink. The woman kept glaring, her phone pressed to her ear, but Malik no longer looked away. The water beside him rippled gently, reflecting the sun, and the truth that was about to surface. The tension still clung to the humid air like static. Malik sat on the pool's edge, his legs dangling in the water, when the sound of sandals clicking against the pavement broke through the silence. The woman, Mrs. Dunlap, someone had whispered her name earlier, was pacing, phone in hand, muttering something about calling the manager, and setting boundaries. Her words buzzed in Malik's ears, faint but sharp, like a mosquito that wouldn't go away. He tried to focus on the water instead, the soft ripples spreading from his feet, the glint of sunlight that danced across the surface. Swimming always brought him peace, a rhythm that erased the noise. But right now, there was no peace to be found. His mind replayed the scene again and again, her accusing stare, the disbelief in her voice, the way everyone else had gone quiet instead of stepping in. Unbelievable, Mrs. Dunlap muttered loudly enough for him to hear. No respect anymore. You try to keep a place decent, and this is what happens. Malik clenched his jaw. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. Stay calm. Always stay calm. You can't control their ignorance, only your response. So he took a breath and tried to do just that. Ma'am, he said evenly, if you check with the front desk, they'll tell you my name's on the list. My mom's Governor Elaine Carter. The woman stopped mid-step. Governor. What? She gave a short, mocking laugh. Oh, that's cute. You expect me to believe that. Next you'll tell me you're royalty. Malik didn't answer. He didn't need to. His chest ached, but he wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing him upset. Instead, he stood, wrapped a towel around his shoulders, and started toward the gate. He figured if he left now, maybe the whole thing would just fade away. But as he reached for his bag, a firm, familiar voice carried across the pool. Is there a problem here? The words weren't loud, but they cut through the air like a bell. Every head turned. Malik froze mid-step. He knew that voice better than any other. Mrs. Dunlap turned too, ready to pounce, her expression twisted in exasperation. Finally, someone who works here. Yes, there is a problem. This young man is trespassing, and when I asked him to leave, he became. She stopped. The woman walking toward them wasn't a staff member. She wore black athletic leggings and a gray tank top, her hair pulled back, a sheen of sweat glistening on her skin as if she'd just come from a run. She didn't need to raise her voice, didn't need to flash authority. Her presence alone was enough to shift the entire atmosphere. Mom, Malik said softly, relief flooding his chest. Elaine Carter, governor of the state, mother of two, and someone who had faced bigger storms than this, looked from her son to the woman standing before him. Her gaze was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet intensity. You were saying, she asked. Mrs. Dunlap's face drained of color. Governor Carter. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize. Elaine crossed her arms, her tone level. Didn't realize what? That my son belongs here. That he's a member just like you. I didn't know he was your son, the woman stammered. And if he weren't? The governor's question hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. A murmur rippled through the bystanders. Some looked away, suddenly fascinated by their towels or phones. Others watched, silent but riveted. Mrs. Dunlap swallowed hard. It was just a misunderstanding. You thought he didn't belong, Elaine interrupted, her voice firm now. You didn't ask. You assumed. Malik stood a few feet away, towel clutched in his hands, torn between pride and the sting of humiliation. He'd wanted the ground to swallow him minutes ago, but now he couldn't move at all. His mother stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough for the woman to hear, though everyone else strained to catch her words. Do you know how many times my son's been told he doesn't belong? In classrooms, on teams, in neighborhoods just like this one. And every time, it's the same excuse, a misunderstanding. Mrs. Dunlap's lips trembled. Governor Carter, I truly didn't mean. Elaine raised a hand. I'm not interested in your excuses. I'm interested in accountability. Maybe next time, you'll check your bias before you decide who deserves to be here. The silence that followed was heavy, almost physical. Then Elaine turned to Malik, her expression softening. You okay, baby? He nodded slowly. Yeah, Mom, I'm okay. She gave him a small smile. Good. Then go enjoy your swim. He hesitated. Really, she said. Don't let her take that from you. So he dropped his towel, walked back to the edge, and dove into the water. The splash echoed through the stunned quiet, breaking the spell. Beneath the surface, everything was cool and calm again. He swam the length of the pool, the rhythm of his strokes steady and strong, each kick a small act of defiance. When he surfaced, the world seemed brighter. His mother stood by the water, talking quietly to the lifeguard, who nodded with a mixture of awe and respect. Mrs. Dunlap gathered her things quickly, her face pale, her movements jerky. Malik didn't watch her leave. He didn't need to. The water wrapped around him like armor, and for the first time that day, he felt weightless again. The sting of humiliation was still there, faint and raw, but something else rose to meet it, pride. Not just in himself, but in the woman standing at the edge of the pool, who had taught him that dignity wasn't something others could grant. It was something you carried, no matter who tried to take it away. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation on their phone. The tense standoff, the moment Governor Elaine Carter stepped in, the stunned silence that followed her words. Within hours, the clip had made its way across social media. By noon, it was on local news stations, headlines blaring, "Governor confronts racial bias at neighborhood pool." Malik didn't know any of that yet. He was sitting at the kitchen counter, a bowl of cereal slowly going soggy, when his mom walked in holding her buzzing phone. Her hair was still damp from the shower, but her face was calm, her posture steady, the way it always was when the world was watching. "Morning," he said softly, half expecting a lecture about how she had asked him to avoid attention during her re-election season. Instead, she smiled faintly. "Morning, baby. Sleep okay?" He shrugged. "Yeah, kinda." Elaine poured herself a cup of coffee, the smell rich and warm, filling the silence between them. "You handled yourself well yesterday," she said finally. "Better than most adults would've." He didn't answer right away. His mind replayed the woman's face, the disbelief, the anger, the sudden shame when she realized who his mother was. "She only backed off because of you," he said quietly. "If you hadn't shown up, she would have kept going. Maybe even called the cops." Elaine's hand froze on the coffee pot. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she set it down carefully and turned to face him. "You're right," she said. "And that's exactly the problem." He looked up, surprised at the edge in her voice. "People like her," she continued, "don't see you for who you are, they see what they expect to see. Power is the only thing that makes them pause. Not decency, not truth. Just power." She sighed and leaned against the counter. "That's what I've been fighting my whole career, Malik. And it's what you'll keep facing, no matter what I do." He pushed his cereal away, appetite gone. "It's not fair." "No," she said, "it isn't. But you keep your head up anyway." There was a knock at the door before either of them could say more. Malik stood to answer, but his mom stopped him with a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Let me." She opened the door to find a woman standing there, wringing her hands, a woman Malik recognized instantly. Mrs. Dunlap looked nothing like the self-assured figure from yesterday. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes red-rimmed. She clutched a small paper bag that looked like it came from a local bakery. "Governor Carter," she began, her voice trembling. I wanted to apologize. To you and your son. I was wrong." Elaine's expression didn't change. She didn't move to invite the woman in, but she didn't close the door either. "You were," she said simply. Mrs. Dunlap swallowed. "I've been sick about it all night. I wasn't thinking. She trailed off, tears spilling over. "I didn't recognize him. I made an assumption. I shouldn't have." Malik stood a few feet back, unsure whether to feel angry, uncomfortable, or vindicated. He could still see the moment from yesterday, the certainty in her eyes when she told him to leave. That same certainty had shattered now. Elaine finally spoke, her tone measured. "I appreciate the apology, but you need to understand, this isn't just about what you said to my son. It's about every kid who doesn't have a mother who can walk in and make people listen." Mrs. Dunlap nodded quickly, wiping her eyes. "I know. I swear, I've learned my lesson. I just hope he can forgive me." Her gaze flicked toward Malik. For a long moment, he said nothing. The air was thick with awkwardness and guilt. Then he met her eyes and said quietly, "I don't want to hold on to it. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll forget." She nodded again, defeated but understanding. "That's fair." She placed the paper bag on the step. "Some muffins. Just a peace offering." Then she turned and left without another word. Elaine closed the door softly, her face unreadable. "You didn't have to say anything," she told him. "I wanted to," he replied. "I needed to." She nodded. "Good." Later that day, Malik scrolled through his phone and finally saw the video. Thousands of comments poured in, some praising his composure, others condemning the woman's behavior. Reporters were already speculating about what it meant for his mom's political image. But Malik barely read any of it. What caught his attention wasn't the attention or the outrage, it was the messages from other kids who said they'd been through the same thing. "Happened to me at my school. You handled it better than I did. Thanks for showing it's not just me." He locked his phone and stared out the window at the pool across the street. The water glimmered under the afternoon sun, calm and unbothered. That evening, his mom drove them past the pool on the way to dinner. The parking lot was quiet. No reporters, no cameras, just the faint sound of sprinklers ticking nearby. "You know," she said, glancing at him with a soft smile, "you could still go swim tomorrow if you want." He looked out the window again, then nodded. "Yeah," he said, "I think I will." As the car rolled away, Malik thought about the woman's face, about how fear and guilt had replaced arrogance overnight. He thought about how his mother had turned that moment into a lesson instead of revenge. And for the first time, he understood what real strength looked like, not the kind that shouted or fought back, but the kind that stood its ground quietly, until the truth had nowhere left to hide.